Hello, thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Ron Whitlock. Since to fail to plan is to plan to fail, as they say, the city located at the southern tip of Texas, that being Brownsville, is in the process of developing goals for where it wants to be in 10 years and drafting a roadmap of exactly how to get there. The logo on the screen, Imagine Brownsville. It's our future. Imagine Brownsville es nuestro futuro. Unique in the initiative because it's community-driven. Speak on this issue, Herb Downing, co-chairman of Imagine Brownsville. Welcome to the program, Herb. Also, Herb is the regional vice president for Chase Bank for the region of South Texas where you work, Herb. Also sitting to his side, Anthony Triani, who's co-chair of the economic development portion of Imagine Brownsville and also is a city commissioner for the city of Brownsville. So exciting to see such a unique situation because the citizens of your community really coming together, all other stakeholders, all other quasi-governmental entities, all coming together and putting together a 10-year comprehensive plan. I thought it was supposed to come from bureaucrats and from the top down, fellas. What's going on and why are you doing it this way?
Well, Ron, I think that the idea that we have in mind is having a community consensus on what the community feels its needs and its wants are and what the vision for the community is over the next 10 to 15 years. And I think that's why we're doing it the way we're doing it.
Now, as you watch the program, you obviously can put yourself in this situation, whatever community where you reside at this particular point in time. Just consider the fact that what if your community did it this way also, rather than a urban planner, your elected officials, getting into a smoke-filled room, wherever, coming up with a plan and then telling what that plan is going to be. What if they came to you and asked you what you thought about where your community wanted to be in 10 years, 15 years, for you, your family, your neighbors, and their future and their quality of life? Herb, you came out of the urban planning business before you became a banker. Is this going to work, bringing in the community, doing it so revolutionary and a bottom-up rather than top-down situation?
I mean, I think it's the only way it's going to work. Because if you rely and you just have those kind of decisions made by a small group of people, and you talk about strategy with 4 or 5 people.
You used to be one of those people.
I used to be one of those people. What a planner would try to do, frankly, what the idea of an urban planner would try to do, would try to get community participation. No one ever showed up. They weren't interested. This is so different than before because the way the City Commission decided to structure this whole thing was to invite people in before any decisions were made, before any strategy was laid out, while having professional planners involved and engaged all throughout the process. And that's an exciting thing to deal with.
Old school, it would have been the urban planner, the mayor, council, would have determined, we think we need to go here, now let's go out to the community and let us fill in the blanks, have them fill in our blanks of where we want to take the community. Is that the way it was? But this time, you really wanted to have a blank slate, a clean chalkboard, bring in the community, get their involvement, and engage all the stakeholders and then go forward.
That's exactly how we wanted to do this one, yes.
Unbelievable, Anthony.
Well, I
what
think
an idea. Maybe it's a new democratic initiative.
Well, I think it's important. I think it's very important, given the needs of our community, the resources that we have, and the potential for our community, that we do involve as many people as possible. You know, we do have limited resources, but through the town hall meetings, we've had approximately 8,000 people say what they felt the priorities were for our community. That's very important because we need to know that we are benefiting the most people that we possibly can with this plan, and it's something that the community can say is a plan for the community and not simply from a single individual, a single group of people, or a system. And in this case, we're talking about something that everyone can buy into, can proceed forward with and say, this is what we want for our city. It's not what Anthony Troiani wants. It's not what Herb Downing wants. It's not what the City Commission wants. It's what Brownsville wants.
Herb, 8,000 citizens of your town have come together and voted on the top 15 goals for the next 10 years for the community.
Mm-hmm.
That surprised you in any way? I mean, obviously, you indicated that it did just a
Well,
moment ago, because in your earlier life as a city planner, you couldn't get anybody involved. But in this instance, because the community has had such an outreach with a website, with all the town hall meetings, all of the public service announcements that have gone out on this television station and others to get the word out, it's going well.
It is going well, and you know, the thing that's a plan, a lot of times people talk about it in the context of, we're going to produce a plan and we're going to take a document and put it on a shelf, and that's a plan, and it's entitled Comprehensive Plan. And really the way planning is now, it's a process. It's a process of engaging your community. It's a process of really identifying the challenges that you face, and every community faces challenges. And it's saying, okay, what can we do first? What should we do first? What should our strategy be? The whole thing is a living process, and so this is really the way to approach this whole thing right now. I'm really surprised about the quality of folks that have come to the table to talk about what they think is important for Brownsville, what they think. And we're entering a phase right now where we're going to talk about what are the strategies for the community. And we've got a lot of folks with a lot of good ideas that are experts in specific subject areas that we've brought into this whole process so far. So yeah, I'm really excited about it.
As of this program, Anthony, how far along are you? How much time have you put into the Imagine Brownsville concept? And how much longer do you have to go before you'll end up with an actual plan and then go into the report card phase? Report card phase being looking at your city council to follow through on what the citizens have told you they want to be the strategic plan for the next 10 years.
Well, so far what we've been able to do is we've had the town hall meetings. We've had meetings of the various subcommittees, economic, social, etc. And we've brought together people from the community who have given their input. And then we've had just recently, we've had another series of meetings where we've had people vote on what they would like to see as objectives for the community. And that was, I think it was about, a month and a half ago?
About a month and a half, sure.
That we did this. And we had about 200 to 300 people come over to the Brownsville Event Center and had people vote on what they would foresee a future Brownsville looking like, such as if we were going to have green belts, economic development, and also trying to address some of the infrastructure needs that we would have, and looking at, we had citizens of this community looking at issues such as the alignment of our industrial sector versus that of Matamoros. So we're engaging our community to look at ourselves not just as Brownsville, but as a region, so that people will have the understanding of where we fit into the puzzle and where we as a community are going to be able to excel and where we may need assistance. And I think just for public awareness, that's a huge issue, let alone for Imagine Brownsville. But if you get that many people involved and you get that many people actually participating, it really opens up what you can do as a community.
Why expand beyond your city boundaries and bring in other constituents into the process? Why is that important?
Well, personally, I think that's important because you don't live in a vacuum. I mean, what affects the Port of Brownsville affects Brownsville. What affects Los Fresnos affects Brownsville. Port Isabel, Matamoros, even as far away, imagine that as McAllen and San Antonio. I mean, we have to look at where we fit in to this region and where we as a community are going to impact for our own benefit and the benefit of the region as well.
Irv, that kind of attitude, that kind of thinking is what's kept the region of South Texas, all the way from Brownsville to Laredo, north to Corpus Christi, behind for decades, looking at it in that vacuum,
sure,
being very provincial, looking at your own county line, your own municipality lines. But this is a unique opportunity, and you're right in the big middle of it. You want to go back to city planning and leave your banking job.
Well, I think it's surprising that really when you look at it in the context of banking, or you look at it in planning, you look at it with some of the manufacturers we have here, manufacturers here, our kids here getting out of education, they compete now, not now with McAllen or Corpus Christi, they compete globally. They compete with a child in India and in China, and we are connected right now with companies that are manufacturing globally. There was a Keppel Amphels christened an offshore oil rig that was built by Brownsville folks. That rig is going to Argentina. That's a $150 million rig, but it's manufactured here, combined with parts from all over the world, engineering from all over the world, and built here in Brownsville. And so the point of view right now is much more global. And so we have to compete globally, and we've got to look beyond just our municipal borders.
The Subsea 7 spool base going into Port Isabel is going to serve all the way to South Central America.
Right.
Okay, $32 million investment, a $30 million ship coming in to take that spool base out to the 30 billion barrels of oil sitting right offshore from your community, going to change the whole texture of this region.
It really will. And you know, when we're speaking of oil, I mean, as part of the development of the city, how people get around. Now, this is something that's really come to the forefront since we began this whole planning process. Look at what everybody's paying for gasoline now and what they were paying a couple of years ago. So right now, how you design a city, how you deal with transportation, where you go to shop, how far away you develop from the city center, all of those things all of a sudden come more into play than what they were maybe even when we began this whole planning process. It's another issue on how the planning process has to be flexible. It has to change, but we always got to be taking a look at it with a group of people from throughout the community.
What bad things can happen to our viewers in the community where they live, whether they live in Brownsville or any other community across the state and nation? What can happen if they fail to plan for 10, 15 years down the road? What kind of bad things can happen? I'm sure you've seen them in your training to become an urban planner before you got into banking, Herb.
Well, I think transportation is obviously an issue. If we're able to move people effectively and economically from place to place, from home to work, if someone has an opportunity with an automotive plant someplace else in the Rio Grande Valley, that I believe will happen sooner or later, we'll have to take a pool of workers from throughout the valley, up and down. So we want to be flexible there. So not planning for transportation is an issue. We've all seen that in trying to drive the valley's expressways over the past few years as they've been reconstructed.
Atlanta being close to potentially running out of water, was that a problem in not planning for the future?
Yeah, that's probably even more important and to the point than what we're dealing with in terms of transportation. But the fact that long-term looks at our water and at desalinization options are already in the works and are already producing certain levels of desalinated water is really, really important. We've already started that as a community. It's not part of this process, but it is part of being mindful of population growth. So being without water, transportation, is the education system, is it ready for all the children that are coming up to have the opportunity to enter into higher education? All of these kind of things require a lot of planning. They require a lot of dollars to get it done.
Top 15 goals voted by the public August 2007. Some 8,000 citizens of your community combined voting on these top 15. Let's go over just a few of them and see exactly what you think is going to come out in the report, because you're somewhat midway in the putting all this together. Improve community workforce skills. Shrimping industry on the decline. The 30 billion barrels of oil just offshore, half Mexican, half United States. That is developed. More welders going to be needed, people to work offshore, coming out of the shrimping industry. Build a healthier community, obesity, diabetes, disease rates, and those kinds of things. More affordable health care. What have you seen already that's been a surprise to you, Anthony? Anything?
Well, I think that
the people wanted you maybe hadn't thought about.
Well, I think that the amount of interest in quality of life issues was overwhelming. I really thought that economic development or jobs would have been, the sole priority.
Wow.
And the quality of life questions such as parks, the linear park, the
wildlife habitat, wetlands,
conservation,
waste recycling.
all of these issues were huge.
Real high, number 2 and number 3
Right.
on your list.
Right.
And
Surprise to you, right, Irv?
Yes.
They say they want to have maximum cooperation amongst the major assets of your port, your international airport, your 3 international bridges to Mexico, South Padre Island, your 4-year university, and the partnerships in particular with the nation of Mexico right across the river, where up to 40% of those citizens in Matamoros have family members in Brownsville. That wasn't a surprise that they wanted these things to be tied together a little bit better, did they?
no, I don't think that that's a surprise given the binational, bicultural aspect of our community. I think that if you just go as far as to look at our levee system, I mean, we have to improve our levee system as both countries. I mean, if our levee system is improved and the Mexican side is not, flooding is going to affect people who have family and friends and business interests in Mexico, and Tamaulipas, Nuevo León, all the way up the river. Mm-hmm. I mean, I understand that provincially it may seem like we want to guard our piece of the pie, but if we don't look at the broader picture, we're really losing out.
The levee system, Katrina brought it to the national forefront. Everybody now, nationally in the United States, aware of the fact that levees are very important, and they mean the difference between life and death, and whether a community can literally be devastated to the degree that New Orleans was. So, to that degree, is that a key element of your comprehensive plan that you think the citizens are going to be demanding and requiring when they end up with all your process?
When I met with people from Hidalgo County, and we talked about alternatives to the border wall, and we talked about having a reinforced levee system, one of the things that I really was not aware of was the amount of automotive parts that are shipped up to Detroit and to other Midwestern cities. And one of the big questions from a lot of the people that we met with in Washington was, well, what happens if the levee fails? How will that affect Reynosa? Not how will it affect Brownsville? How will it affect McAllen and the U.S. side? But what will happen to all these companies that are shipping their parts up to manufacturers? And that's a huge issue. And that's just not on the Hidalgo County side or the Cameron County side or Brownsville. That is a regional look into our community and what we're doing globally. And I think that's a huge issue, that our levees control what's going to happen to thousands of workers in Detroit.
Those workers will be sitting idle. They'll be sent home because those just-in-time delivery parts being manufactured in Maquilas and Matamoros, Reynosa will not be getting there in a few days, and so Detroit will shut down
Weeks
if the
and
levees
months.
fail, period.
Yeah. Right.
Who would have ever thunk it?
Well, the Valley's a much, much different place in terms of development than it was in the early 70s. That's obvious. But it's moved into, the levee system was designed, I guess, in the late 40s as part of flood control, and now we have 2 huge urbanized areas on both sides of the border, and the area is a deltaic plain. It's flat. So, we're challenged by designing a drainage system not only along the river and to provide for the hurricane-type floods, but also for just the type of heavy rainstorms that we get within both communities. So it is a part of this process is to look at those things. Those may not be on the top of everybody's list in the context of a ball field versus a drainage ditch, but you need the drainage ditch to keep the water off the ball fields and out of your home.
Now, if you go to www.imaginebrownsville.com, click in on features and benefits, you will see that what you're developing, fellas, is a comprehensive plan that the City Commission is going to be looked upon to implement, and there's going to be a report card coming in and looking at your mayor and you as a councilman now, Anthony, to make sure you do what the citizenry have told you they want to do. Sounds like democracy in action.
I think it sounds like a good idea.
And they're going to take it out on you at the polls if you don't do what they've asked you to do.
I welcome it. I think that it makes my job easier, Because at the end of the day, I can sit there and say, this is what our plan is. This is what we as a community want. These are our priorities. These are our objectives. And these are the things that are going to give us the quality of life, the economic development that we want within our community. And really, what we're asking our community to do is a cost-benefit analysis of its own priorities. We're going to be able to explain to them, okay, this is the cost of a manufacturing center on the west side of town. This is the cost of putting a limited access roadway on the east side of town, or widening Los Tomates Bridge so that we can get more access in from the Maquilas and Matamoros. And they're going to have to make decisions. And once that's done, then we can sit there and say, okay, this is what we want, this is where we're going to allocate our funds, and this is how we plan on moving forward. I think it makes the business of governing much easier. I think it gives the community an idea of where we want to go. And I think it, based on the participation, it is a true reflection of where we want to go as a community. And I think that's all you can ask for. Everybody complains about the lack of involvement in politics and the lack of involvement in community activities. And here we have a concept, a plan, a strategy to actually get community involvement where people will have the ability to say, this is what I wanted, and this is what we're doing.
Irv, a shared vision for where the community wants to go. A shared vision comes off your website. Promotes shared opportunities for the community to participate and work together. Isn't this amazing how this is already bringing together all the various factions in your community on one thing, and that's to imagine what the future could look if only we will work together.
That's right. That's what community is all about, isn't it, Ron?
Should be.
Yeah.
Should be. Thank you very much for being with us today. Irv Downing and Anthony Troiani, thank you for joining us here on the program. Till next time, adios.